Hello and welcome to Finally Python and Jupyter for true newbies. If you're like me, you've heard a lot about Python and how easy it is, but every time you try to learn a little bit, you get confused or distracted by things like GitHub and pip and pandas. In this course, even if you've never written a single line of code of any kind, you're going to be able to quickly and easily write some Python in some Jupyter notebooks. So let's get started. Okay, so here's a quick outline. We're going to download some software and install it. Then we're going to open it, and we're going to avoid command line installs. We're going to avoid GitHub, and we're going to dive right in to a Jupyter notebook. First thing you're going to do is you're going to navigate using a browser to anaconda.com. And in the top bar, you're going to click on Products. And from that product list, you're going to choose Individual Edition. That's going to take us to a new page, and you're going to see a black download button. When you click that, it's going to shoot you to the bottom of the page where you're going to see an area that includes 6 different kinds of installers. 2 are Windows, 2 are Mac, and 2 are Linux. I'm on a Windows machine, and so I just need to figure out, do I need 64-bit or do I need 32-bit? Let's say you don't know whether you're on a 32-bit or 64-bit machine. Well, you need to go to the search bar in the bottom left corner and type in About Your PC. And when the window comes up, click on that. The About window will open, and in a section called Device Specifications, under the heading System Type, you'll see whether you have 64-bit or 32-bit. So I have 64-bit. I go back to my browser window, and now I know that I have to choose the 64-bit option for Windows. But what if you're on Mac? Well, Mac only has 64-bit options, so you don't need to look that up. You have to choose between graphical installer, which is like a GUI, or a command line installer. And my guess is if you chose this video, you're going to want the graphical installer. I'm a big fan of GUIs rather than command lines, and you probably are too. So for Mac, choose the graphical installer. And then if you're on Linux, you probably didn't sign up for this class because people who use Linux really like command line interfaces, so they don't need a course like this. Once I click on the version that I want to download, it'll start downloading, and you'll be able to see it in the bottom bar. When your download is finally finished, you're going to double click on it to start the installation process. Here are the 5 dialog boxes that I got during installation, and I went with the default choice on every single one of those screens. So I just clicked Next, I agree, Next, Next, Install. Once the installation is finished, I'm going to be able to click on the little Windows button in the far left bottom corner, and the menu will come up, and under the letter A, I'm going to see a folder that says Anaconda 3 with 64-bit in parentheses. For you, it might say 32-bit, and it shows me in blue that this is new. When I click on that folder, I can see that it has installed 6 different things in that folder, and I'm going to click on Anaconda Navigator. A little box, like a command line box, is going to open. It's going to be totally blank, and then it's going to disappear. And then this green circle is going to come up, and it's going to be saying, loading applications. Don't freak out. It might take a minute, but eventually you're going to get a user interface, a graphical user interface. The first thing it's going to ask you is, do you mind sending us some information about your experience? That's totally up to you. Uncheck it or check it, it does not matter. Click one of those options to make it go away. Now we're in Anaconda Navigator, and you can see it has some different options, and I could give you a full tour of Anaconda Navigator, but I'm not a big believer in starting out with full tours because I think people don't really care what everything is until they start using it. So let's dive right in. We're on the home page, and there are 6 tiles that have blue buttons that say Launch, And then there's 3 other tiles that would allow you to install applications, but they haven't been installed yet. The one we're most interested in right away is the Jupyter Notebook application. And so we're going to click the launch button for that application. Once I launch Jupyter, it's actually going to launch in my web browser. For me, that happens to be Chrome. And so I see a tab of my Chrome browser that was already open. And it says something, the page should redirect you if it doesn't. And I didn't even get a chance to read it before it redirected. And it showed me sort of a folder directory. And I'm in Jupyter. I'm in Jupyter. So that's really excellent. So when Jupyter opens, it's going to open in the same folder where you installed everything. So for me, it's opening in the C drive /user/Christ. And so it opens there, and I can tell that's where I am just based on being familiar with those folders, things like 3D objects, contacts, documents, downloads, favorites, all of that. I need to create a new directory that I'm going to keep my notebooks in. So I go to the upper right corner and I click on New, and from the list I want a new folder. It creates the new folder for me. It names it Untitled Folder, and I can see it in the list. Now I'm going to check the box next to it and find the button near the top that says Rename. A dialog's going to open, and it's going to allow me to rename this folder. And so I'm going to rename this folder My Jupyter Notebooks, and then I'm going to click Rename. Now I can see the directory or folder, and it's called My Jupyter Notebooks, and the name of it is in blue, meaning it's a hyperlink. So if I click on the words My Jupyter Notebooks, it's going to drill into that for me. And when I'm inside that directory, I can see that I don't have any notebooks in that folder. It's completely empty, and we know we just created it, so of course. So now we're going to create a Jupyter notebook, and we're going to do that by clicking the New button again, but this time instead of choosing folder, we're going to choose Notebook Python 3. Notice that we now have 2 Jupyter browser tabs. One is the original directory tab, and the other is our new notebook that is open. Notice also that there is what we call a cell in the body of the notebook. It says in, and it has some brackets, and then it has an arrow. So that's called a cell, and that's where we're going to enter our code. But before we do that, let's give our notebook a name. At the top of this tab, right next to the word Jupyter, we can see the word Untitled. If we want to give our notebook a name, we just need to click on the word Untitled, and a new dialog will open. It'll say Rename Notebook, and we can put in the name for the notebook that we want. We're going to put in First Notebook, and then we're going to click Rename. You're now about to type your very first line of Python code. You're going to write the word print. You're going to put some parentheses, and then you're going to put whatever words you want inside the double quotes. Now you're going to click the Run button, and you'll see that it prints Hello World just below the first cell. And then it automatically creates a new cell for you, the second cell, because it's ready for you to enter your next command. I always love when I write my first command in a new language. Congratulations, you just wrote your first line of Python. So let's review what we've accomplished. We downloaded the software and we installed it and we viewed it. We avoided command line and GitHub and all that. And we dived right in, or dove right in, to a Jupyter notebook, and we wrote our first line of Python. Before you move on to the next video in this course, please download the software, create your notebook, and write that first line of code.